Can I go ahead and get started then?
The floor is yours.
It's yours.
Okay.
And you know, Jeff went over, so you feel free to go over. It's the last one. You have all night long. Let me know when you want questions. And other than I'll be quiet now.
I'll take my questions at the end, if that is okay.
Works for me. I'll be quiet until then and entertain people in the chat.
Awesome. Okay. So, hello everyone. Thank you so much for taking your valid time for attending Group by Conference today. I'm very excited. My name is Deepthi Goguri, and I'm a SQL Server database administrator, having several years of experience in managing SQL Server and databases. I'm I'm also Microsoft certified trainer and Microsoft certified solution expert. I did my master's in computer technology at Eastern Illinois University, and I blog for dbanuggets.com. That's my website, and you can contact me on Twitter at dbanuggets. So if you have any questions regarding this session, you can definitely contact me later on Twitter. I would like to thank all of our sponsors for sponsoring for Group by Conference today. Without your support, this event would not have been possible. Thank you so much. So what are we going to discuss in this session today? I have a big title, but let's dive deep into the TempDB. So what are we going to discuss in this session today? As an overview, we are going to talk about the introduction. What is TempDB, how the TempDB gets created, and those kind of things for the introduction part. And then let's go ahead and see what is the TempDB transaction log, what's inside the transaction log, right? And the types of the TempDB objects, like the user objects, internal objects, what all types do we have that we store inside the TempDB. And let's talk about the TempDB contention later, like what are the types of the contention we have inside the TempDB, and what is the main improvement. Like there are several improvements, but we are mainly focusing on one improvement that's actually featured in SQL Server 2019. And finally, we'll go ahead and look into the recommendations part. So what is TempDB? TempDB is a system database, as you know, it is used for storing the temporary units of information. And it is just similarly like the other databases. It have the similar structures, like it have the same kind of pages, tables, metadata, everything is the same, but it is minimally logged. What do we mean by minimally logged? We do not log each and everything. This particular TempDB, though its recovery model is full recovery model, behind the scenes, under the covers, inside the code of the engine itself, they have written the logic so that the TempDB will actually behave like a simple database, right? Because with that simple database option, like within the logic they have mentioned, it minimally logs everything, because we do not care once we restart the SQL Server. All the objects, everything are not permanent, right? They are not persisted inside the TempDB. Once we restart the SQL Server, everything is lost. We don't care what's in the TempDB anymore, right? And high concurrency. Everybody wants to use TempDB, right? Every database, every application want to use TempDB. It is highly concurrent, and it is recreated for every restart, like I said. And there is only one TempDB per instance of SQL Server, and that in TempDB should be configured based upon our workloads. So why TempDB is so unique, right? It is so unique because it is used to explicitly create the temporary tables. All your temporary tables that you go ahead and create for all of your stored procedures, whatnot, they are explicitly created inside the TempDB. And some of them gets implicitly created, like triggers or snapshot isolation. Once you generate the triggers or snapshot isolation, behind the scenes, it will actually enable the row versioning inside the TempDB. And the logging is so different in the TempDB. Like I said, it is minimally logged, right? Though it is a full recovery model, it behaves like the simple recovery model. And it is a shared resource. Everybody wants to use it. Why is TempDB is very important? There are several other reasons, but when we talk about our queries, right? whenever we run our query, and if the data cannot fit into the memory, where does that go? It goes into the TempDB, right? And for our queries, if we put the intermediate query results for our queries, where do those go? Those go to TempDB as well. And if you have those sorts, if the memory grant that is not efficient for the sort to be sorted in the memory, where do that sort goes? It will go and sort in the TempDB. That's the temporary location where the data gets stored, right? Even the spools inside your execution plans, if they cannot get stored inside the memory, that goes into the TempDB as well. Now, how does the TempDB gets created? First, when you restart the SQL Server, the first database that gets opened up is the master database. Once the master database gets opened, inside the master database, we have all the logins and everything, right? So as the logins are available right now, as master database is available, all the user connections can also connect as the user databases are, recovering. While the databases are recovering, users can also connect. But then model database and TempDB database will be completely logged, because TempDB, until the TempDB is completely recovered, TempDB database won't be available. And how does the TempDB get generated? It is generated from the model database, and it will take all the properties from the model database, and the TempDB gets generated. So until TempDB is completely recovered and is available, both the model database and TempDB database will be completely logged. So how does the TempDB gets created from the model database? What are the steps, right? So first, the when we restart the SQL Server after the master database is available, it will directly go and lock model and TempDB. Now, why? Because TempDB has to go ahead and get all the extends information, all the file gathering information from the model, and all the properties it have to gather from the model database. So connections are allowed at this certain point of time, but no one can connect or use the model or TempDB because they are logged, right? The next step, what happens is the TempDB database will get created. The first thing that happens is the primary database file gets created by using the model database, and one extent at a time from the model database will be copied over to the primary data file of the TempDB, including any user objects. For example, by mistake, you have created a very big table in the model database. Then while copying those extent, even that particular table will also copy it to your TempDB. Like if your TempDB is taking very long time to create, you might have to go and check what all objects you have in the model database just in case. And after that, uh, because the TempDB database will use the model database, right? It will create the primary data file by using the model database. So once it creates the primary data file by using the model database, to increase, it can go ahead and increase the size of the primary data file if you configure your TempDB as a bigger size. That will happen behind the scenes, and it will go ahead and create the primary transaction file log file after that. After creating the primary transaction log file, then additional database files like .ndf files for the TempDB will go ahead and get generated. Now, if you check the log, right, if you check the error log in your management studio, if you check that, the first step is starting up the model database. That means that particular model database is open to create the TempDB database. When you check the second step, it is actually creating the TempDB database. At that particular step, what happens is the primary database file will get generated, the primary transaction log file will get generated, and one extent at a time is copied from the model to the TempDB. When you come to the third step, starting up the database TempDB, at that particular point in time, all of the additional database files, the NDF files, will be generated. Now, if you see so much of gap, like so much of time in between the step 2 and step 3, that's that will tell you that there is something going on with the model database, because all of the extents will be copied over, all of the transaction log will be copied over. So you might have to go and check what is going on with the model database. Let's talk about the TempDB transaction log a little bit. As I said, the transaction log of the TempDB is minimally logged, right? Now, what do I mean by the minimally logged? The after images for the inserts and the updates are not logged, especially for the heaps, because most of the tables we have for the TempDB are the heaps only tables. And if you are logging for the other transactions, like for example, if you are explicitly committing a transaction in TempDB or implicitly committing a transaction, then that particular transaction won't be logged at all in the transaction log, because because TempDB is trying to make sure it keeps minimally logging, and it acts exactly the same like the simple recovery database, because we don't care what objects are there, because we don't care for the crash or media recovery. Once we restart the SQL server, everything will become as is, right? If a fresh copy of the TempDB database will be created. So why care about what all there in the, why should we care about the media recovery? Transaction log is basically used for the crash recovery, right? But then transaction log will also be used for something else. You might ask me, like, if we are not logging anything, why should we actually use the transaction log for the TempDB, right? For the rollback purposes, we have to use rollback purposes. We'll make sure that we are actually following the ACID properties. Doesn't mean that we are following that for the redo processes, for the media recovery or the crash recovery. It is important for the rollback processes to make sure we are following the ACID properties of transaction. So what will be logged for the TempDB, right? How does the logging happen inside the TempDB? There is something known as lazy commits, meaning that if you are doing any transaction, even before the transaction log will be not written to the disk, even before the pages flush to the disk. That is because we do not want, like, we are not concerned about the media recovery at all. So when you commit any transaction, you are not going to write everything into the transaction log. And checkpoint process doesn't happen for the TempDB. Do you know that? Whenever the checkpoint process will run every couple of minutes by the SQL Server automatically, the checkpoint process will actually exclude the TempDB. But there is the other thing, like if you manually go ahead and do the hard checkpoint on the database, right? In your management studio, if you do the checkpoint at that particular scenario, checkpoint process will work on TempDB. But be careful that as we are not, as the checkpoint process is excluding the TempDB all the time, and now we are doing the hard checkpoint manually, that might take a little bit amount of time to do the checkpoint process on TempDB. But checkpoint process will truncate the transaction log. And regularly, the lazy writer will clean up those buffers from the buffer pool as well. That will work as is. And for the internal objects, right? For the internal objects, mostly the logging is done for the allocation only. For rest of the things, for the internal objects especially, we do not log anything at all. And no redo of TempDB happens. Like as I told, the even the checkpoint process is for the crash recovery. Why do we do the checkpoint process? Why do SQL Server do the checkpoint process? It is for the crash recovery. So as we are not concerned about the crash recovery at all, checkpoint process doesn't happen. And redoing of the TempDB doesn't happen because redo only happens for the crash recovery, right? And only rollbacks happen. That too, we wanted to make sure we can roll back the transaction, and that is the reason we have transaction log. What all objects do we have inside the TempDB? What all objects can be saved inside the TempDB? Temp tables can be stored. The hash operator, if you have inside your execution plan, those hash work tables can be stored. Cursors, some types of cursors will actually capture those intermediate results. Those kind of intermediate results will be saved inside the TempDB as well. Online index operations. right? If you do the online index and sort in the TempDB, then those sorting will happen in the TempDB. Table valued functions will use the TempDB. Table variables, whenever you say table variables, you might be thinking that table variables are always in the memory, but that's not true. Table variables will be saved inside the TempDB as well. And if you have any spool operators, right, those spools happen in TempDB. Triggers, triggers will actually behind the scenes, they will enable the row versioning. Those things will be saved inside the TempDB. Sorts will happen in TempDB as well if the memory that has been allocated is not sufficient. Index operations happens. DBCC checkDB actually save that shadow copy of the database while doing the DBCC checkDB. That happens in the TempDB as well. Statistic updates use the TempDB as well. So what all objects do we have inside the TempDB? There are two different types of objects we have. One is user objects and the other is internal objects. User objects, as you know, the temporary tables we have, the table variables. Table variables also like table valued function, which gives the return values. Those are also considered as table variables. Table valued parameters also come under the table variables. Temporary procedures. What are these temporary procedures? These temporary procedures are scoped just like the table variables and temporary tables, but then they have the text behind that store procedures, right? Temporary store procedures. Those will be saved inside the TempDB. And the user defined objects. You can create any table you want. If you are not concerned about the losing the data inside the temp table, you can just go ahead and create the any user defined objects as well. And when you come to the internal objects, these internal objects are we cannot implicitly create them like create, sort, create work table. We cannot do that. Behind the scenes, there are processes that happens behind the scenes when you run your queries, right? For example, sorts. You do not have a query for creating a sort, but then when you run your queries, those sorts happens behind the scenes, right? For your queries. Those are the sorts. Work tables. Work tables are especially for the developers who work for Microsoft. They use these work tables to generate some temporary objects that they wanted to store some data temporarily while they are working inside the engine, right? So they do not go ahead and create temporary table hashtag temp table. They don't do that because they are working inside the engine, right? So they have the same kind of structure, same kind of code, but that is not exactly the same as temp table that we create. They have a separate logic behind creating these work tables. And these work table, they store in the memory, but then they don't require, these work table don't have to go ahead and save the information of creating these work table information into the system tables of the TempDB. They don't have to. And the work files are used for hash operators. And there is a version store will be generated when you use online indexes and when you are using snapshot isolation, those kind of things. Now, how do we capture the information about these objects, right? The user objects and the internal objects. We have the DMVs especially to capture the information at the file level, session level, and the task level. These three DMVs will give you the information about those objects, user and the internal objects. When, like how many did they get created, those kind of information. So a little bit about temporary table. We do have two types of tables, the local temporary table, which have a single hash table, and the global temporary table, which have double hash, right? And for the local temporary table, the uh, they do like they live for the session or for the proc. The scope is the session or the proc. But for the global temporary table, it is the last user who is using it or the server restart because they are available for everyone, right? Everyone within the within the SQL Server. And we do cache these temporary tables. And whenever, do you know this actually? Whenever we wanted to cache any temporary tables, SQL Server will go ahead and change the name of that particular temporary table before it gets cached. Now, why? Why is that? Because whenever you generate any temporary table, if you go ahead and check the name of the temporary table, you have at the end of it, you have several underscores and a name, a number, right? So that particular number is nothing but an incremental number that SQL Server will generate automatically for each and every temporary table you create. But for storing that into the cache, the particular name, the underscores and the number will be removed and a different name will be generated. And when that name will be generated before going into the cache, that particular information should be also updated inside the system tables of the TempDB. Let's talk a little bit about table variable. The scope is the batch or the procedure, and we cannot do select into the table variable. And caching is supported for the table variable, but you can never roll back the table variable, because when you roll back, the rollback processes, it explicitly um, do the transaction at the operational level, and you cannot do the user transactions for the table variable. It's not allowed. No rollback is allowed, and no stats or create index is allowed for the table variable. And table valued function, table valued parameters are same as the table variable. So let's talk about the internal objects, right? The first one is sort. So any sort, like if you are running any query and if you have any sorts in it, the order bys in it, even before the query gets into the execution phase, SQL Server will go ahead and allocate a certain amount of memory so that that query can use while it's executing it. And grants might be not sufficient when that query goes to the execution phase. In that particular scenario, that particular sort, SQL Server doesn't know where to do the sort because that memory is not sufficient. So it has to actually spill to disk and use TempDB for doing the sorts. It will use that temporary location as the TempDB to do its sorts. So how do you capture these sorts, right? So profiler, we can use the profiler to see these sort warnings. We have X events, and we can also check the default trace from SQL Server 2008 R2 and above. And for every sort, right, only uniform extents are allocated. There are no missed extents for the sort. And these uniform extents, once they are allocated for the sort, they will be hanging around for the sort itself. So they will be stored especially for those sorts. And there is something known as internal caching extent mechanism, where it will save these um, how many number of uniform extents we have actually kept for the sorts. And whenever these extents get allocated or deallocated, like when do these extents get deallocated, like when there is a memory pressure, these extents, that uniform extents, will be deallocated. So these allocation and deallocation will be logged inside the transaction log. And for the uniform extents, like for these pages especially used for the sort, we have a page type with the number 7. When you check the header information of these pages, which are especially used for these sorts, you have the page number as 7. Now, what about the work tables? As I told you, work tables are the pages, are the data pages inside the TempDB, especially used for the developers who work for Microsoft, who works for it, like who wanted to create the work tables a temporary location while they were working at the features inside the engine itself. They just can't go ahead and create temp table hash. They cannot do that. They have a special logic inside the Microsoft product, So whenever they create these work tables have negative object IDs. Like whenever you check the header information of any page, and if you see the negative ID, that means those are the work tables. And these work tables doesn't have to write anything to the system tables. Like whenever the temporary tables get generated, we usually write that information into the system tables because system tables are the one which will have all those information of all the other objects where are they actually get stored. But for the work tables, we don't have to interact with the system tables at all. And work tables are allocated the mixed extents. By default, they are only mixed extents in the beginning. But once they hit the 8 page limit, by allocating 8 pages, they will automatically get transferred to the uniform extent. The next extent that get allocated will be the uniform extent. And we can use these extents, right? These extents will be also be saved. Once they are allocated, they will be saved for the reuse. But when there is a memory pressure, then these work table extents will be cleared up. And there are uh, couple of operations which will actually use the work tables. Actually, there are several of them inside the tempdb, but couple of them are checkdb, spool operators like XML documents. Those kind of operations will actually use these temp work tables. And you can check how many work tables are getting generated by checking on the counters, work tables created per second, work tables per cache ratio. What about the work files? These work files are especially used for the hash joins. And not every time that whenever you see the work files doesn't mean that it is coming from the tempdb. But if at all that is related to the tempdb, then it's related to the hash joins. Like if your hash is really big and it cannot fit into the memory, those hashes will be actually split into small units, so that they can use those work files for temporary storage. And how do we actually capture these work files? Again, hash warnings we can see, especially and using the X events and pages allocated by second. Now, by using the perform counter, you cannot capture how many work files are generating exactly, because um, even for the DMVs, if you see, those DMVs will actually get the information about all of these internal objects. Combinedly, they will give the amount of how many are getting created, like work tables, work files, and sorts, everything together, it will show the value. But especially if you want to see how many tables are like how many work files are getting created, especially for the hash, then you have to check for the hash warning, and then pages allocated per second counter. And these are not hashed in the buffer pool. They are stored as the pages on the tempdb. Only uniform extents are generated for the work files, and there is no logging for this. And there is this page ID that gets created for the work file, which is page ID is 6. Page type is 6, sorry. Now, version store. Version store gets automatically enabled, the row version store, whenever you have the snapshot isolation turned on or read committed snapshot isolation turned on. And whenever you do the online index rebuilds by using sort in tempdb, then it will go ahead and use the tempdb as well. Whenever you do the online index rebuild, version store will be used. Triggers also use the version store, and this version store will not be logged inside the transaction log. And these buffers are hashed, and page type is especially true. Whenever you see the page type as true at the page header of, of those pages, those are the row version pages with the page type as true. And async cleanup happens for this row version store. And there are DMVs and perfmon counters, especially for the row version store inside the tempdb. Now let's talk about the object allocation contention. Let's dive deep into the contention itself. So when do we see the object allocation contention? This type of contention happens especially on the special pages that are used to manage the space allocation in a data file. These are the special pages which will actually know where the other objects are being stored. The contention happens on those pages. Now, what are those pages, right? Those pages are PFS page, GAM page, SGAM page, right? The first page, right, with the page ID 0 is always the header. And the next one with the ID 1 is PFS page. The PFS page, what it does is, PFS meaning page free space. What it does is it will actually record the amount of free space for the next 8087 pages until it reaches the second PFS page. Its work is to capture all of the free space available on each of those pages. And when you come to the GAM page is global allocation map page. It have the bitmap value. It will store the information in the form of bitmap value if the extent is already allocated or not allocated and free. Extent meaning 8 group of 8 KB pages is known as extent. So all it does is to record in the form of bitmap of whether each and every extent for the next 64,000 extents, whether they are already allocated or whether they are free. Now, if the bitmap has a value of 1, that means that extent is free. If the GAM bitmap value is 0, that means that particular extent is already, allocated. It's not free. And when you come to the SGAM page meaning it's a GAM page for the mixed extents, right? Exactly like the GAM page, right? It will go ahead and store the information in the form of bitmap value. If it has the value of 1, then that particular extent is actually free. And if it has 0, then that particular extent is actually full. And for the next 64,000 extent, until it reaches the next SGAM page, it will store this information of whether they are free or used. And this is especially for the mixed extents. Now, why are we talking about the extents at all, right? Why are we even talking about this in the TempDB? Now, whenever we are creating any object and we are requesting for a TempDB page, right? When we are requesting for any page inside the TempDB, we need to go ahead and update depending upon which extent we need or page we need to go ahead and update these pages. If concurrently, because TempDB is highly concurrent, right? Many connections will be actually using at the same time. So many connections, if they are going ahead and requesting for the pages, right? Then there will be a contention on these metadata pages actually. That's object allocation contention, it's called. So how does that actually work, right? Now, how do we read the PFS page? If there is a page object allocation contention, if you see there are the page latch weights that you see, and if you check the resource, you will see the database ID, file ID, and the page ID inside the resource of that particular page latch. Now, if the DB ID is 2, that is the TempDB, that is pointing to the TempDB, and the file ID 1 is pointing to the primary data file, and the page ID 1 is always the PFS page. If you are seeing a page latch weight on the PFS, how do you know that is a PFS? By looking at this page address, the database ID, file ID, and the page ID. And if you see 212, that means you are seeing the contention on the GAM page because the ID of the GAM page is 2. If you see 3, then you are seeing the contention on SGAM page. Now, for example, we have a data file here, As I told you, we have the metadata pages which will actually know where the objects are stored, right? And we have to know how much of free space is there on each of those files as well. So these metadata pages are the PFS, GAM, and SGAM page, right? Whenever we run any query, let's say we are running a store procedure, right? And that store procedure is using parallelism in it, meaning it will actually use two threads. It is running actually in the parallel. And to maintain the consistency within these system tables, SQL Server will go ahead and create a serializable lightweight latch object, which is known as latch queue. And all of these threads are continuously sending the request to the data file, right? And they get queued inside this latch queue. Now, why do they get queued inside the latch queue is only one request can update the metadata page at one time. They will get the exclusive lock at the same time. All of these requests will be waiting at the latch queue. That is known as page latch wait, right? Because only one page can be updated at the same time. Now in this situation, if there is only one data file, all of these requests are waiting in the latch queue. Instead, as we as we can create a different data file, and for each data file we can have these PFS, GAM, and SGAM pages. Why can't we go ahead and create an additional data file so that this particular workload can equally be distributed between those files? Now let's go ahead and see how that will happen. Let's go ahead and create one more tempdb file, like additional data file with the same amount of size, with the same size, right? Now what will happen when we create a different data file? Now the same query, the two different threads, but then as we have the different data file, two different data file, they can directly go ahead and without waiting in the latch queue much, it will be very easy for them to get updated, uh, and then take the file, like take the page that they are requesting for creating the tempdb and then go away. And all these requesters will be concurrently be accessing, and it will be easy for these requests to go ahead and process when they have these multiple files, right? So by this, it is really recommended. That is the reason they recommend to create multiple data files for the tempdb, is because if you have multiple data files, then it can distribute the burden onto different data files, because they have to access the and metadata pages to get those, to create the temporary tables in from these tempdb. Now in SQL Server 2016, they they have updated, like default trace flags they have updated. That is trace flag 1117 and 1118. Trace flag 1118 resolves the object allocation contention, because now it will turn off the mixed extent allocations. As I told you, the mixed allocations will actually allocate one page at a time until 8 pages, right? But then if it will turn off the mixed extent allocations at a time, and completely it will provide the uniform extent, that means we will only be allocating couple of times, right? Couple of times, only couple of times we have to go ahead and update those pages, those system pages, um, inside inside the files, data files. And if you enable the trace flag 1117, multiple files in the same group can be created, in the same file group can be created. And by enabling this trace flag 1117, once you auto grow, all the files will auto grow at the same time, keeping the sizes the same, right? And there are a couple of enhancement for the object allocation that happened from 2014 to 2017. Now, what are those enhancements? instead of like whenever we are allocating any objects, right? We have created 4 data files for our TempDB. Now, whenever we wanted to allocate for any object, then previously it used to be like the allocation will be happening for the file one, the allocation one, and for the next file allocation two, third file, and then the fourth file, and then go to the round robin algorithm. With the round robin algorithm, it will go to the first file again. But instead, they added a feature later after 2014 that why should we only go ahead and allocate for one PFS file per file, right? Why let's go ahead and round robin across all of those PFS files because we have multiple PFS files in a single file. So why not we go ahead and allocate for each and every PFS file round robin that way. And then once that is done, let's go ahead and allocate, go ahead round robin again to the page one and give it the allocation. That's the round robin algorithm that the SQL Server that they introduced in the later versions of SQL Server. Now let's talk about the metadata contention. Its metadata contention is just like the previous contention that we saw on the pages, on the metadata pages, but this time these are the pages, these are the contention that happens at the system objects level, right? Those system objects, like we have around 12 pages inside the TempDB, the contention will happen on those system tables, right? Now, why is that? Because whenever you create any table, whenever you wanted to create any object, update any object or delete any object, we have to make sure we are updating those system tables. That happens behind the scenes. So when we are continuously creating, updating, and deleting these objects, the contention happens at the system, at those system tables, because once an object try to update or insert into those system objects, it will get an exclusive log. So how many concurrent um, concurrent updates or insert can we do into those system objects? There will be definitely a lot of contention. So for example, we have inside, we have the metadata tables, right? Now all these create temporary tables, they are trying to get created, and while they are getting created, they are trying to insert that information into the metadata pages all at the same time. And only one table can insert into the metadata table, because that will be actually getting that exclusive log. So there will be complete contention into the metadata tables. And this happened when there is no temp table caching yet. But once they added the temp table caching, it's in SQL Server 2005, it helped actually while they tried to insert into the metadata tables. Now, how does that help? Is how does that help is by actually caching these temporary these metadata tables, like they have cached these metadata information um, sorry, I missed something here. So actually, we will be caching these metadata of these cached temporary tables into the memory, so that they can be get reused all the time. They don't have to come and insert into the metadata tables all the time. But then after they inserted, like after they use the temp table caching, something else happened, right? The contention happened for the deletes. Now we have cached all that metadata of the temp tables into the cache, right? But then once those metadata gets invalidated, for example, how do they get invalidated? For example, we have a store procedure. We created a temp table, but then after creating the temp table, somewhere in between the store procedure, we created an index. That creating an index is actually modifying the schema of the table, right? that will actually invalidate the cache object that we put inside the memory. So that will actually, it gets invalidated. We can't reuse it. So we have to clear that out, right? We have to delete that. So whenever we wanted to delete the metadata object, we have to again come back and update that information into the metadata. So that again caused the contention. Even on the metadata tables one more time. They tried it by by actually capturing that metadata information of these table into the cache, but that did not work in the long run. It actually hurt us back again with the deletes, right? While they are doing the deletes, again the metadata contention has caused. So what did they change to solve this metadata contention in SQL Server 2016 and for all these SQL Server 2017 and SP for all the service packs as well? The old algorithm, while they tried to delete the metadata, what happened is first, while they try to delete the metadata information from the system tables, there is an exclusive lock. The page latch exclusive lock has been acquired on the system table, and then it will go ahead and scan for the metadata rows. And once the metadata rows are found, then it will go ahead and delete the metadata rows. If not, it will release the page latch exclusive lock. But then once throughout the entire process, the exclusive lock um, has been, it has been acquired until the complete process has been done. And in if that is the case, if we will follow the old latching algorithm all the time, even now, then we cannot remove the metadata contention because only one object can be deleted one time within the system tables, right? But then if we can go ahead and optimize that latching algorithm by instead of using the page latch exclusive lock, acquiring that, why not we go ahead and acquire page lock, page latch shared lock first until we find the rows, right? It will go ahead and scan the metadata rows. And if we find the rows, then go ahead and put the page latch exclusive lock so that we'll have more time for the other objects to be cleared as well. Then go ahead and promote the exclusive lock, delete the metadata rows, and release the page latch exclusive. If we do not find the metadata rows at all, then release the page latch, even shared lock, just go ahead and release. This is the optimized latching algorithm that has been done to, to reduce the metadata contention on the SQL Server, especially on those system tables of TempDB. Now, what all the other improvements we have for the metadata contention? Even they did this much, there is still the page contention because even for the shared lock, there is still contention going on because Microsoft, like they continuously keep adding the features for the temp table, temp DB that has been actually creating more and more system tables, right? More and more system tables. So this contention they couldn't remove entirely. So instead of that, what they did is they did something. If at all anybody deletes the table, right? Deletes the temporary table, there should not be any operation. Treat that as no operation. Even though the metadata that we stored inside the cache, like the cached object that we stored inside the cache, even though we created an alter index, we created an index in between the store procedure after creating the temp table, if that will actually invalidate the cached object, doesn't matter. Please don't go ahead and delete that. Just treat that as no operation. Instead, go ahead and put all these objects in the deleted list such that once they are placed in the deleted list, whenever there is memory pressure inside SQL Server, go ahead and um, fetch each and every object metadata, and go ahead and delete that way. But who will delete all this, right? Who will delete each and every object from this deleted list? Because all of those threads are working so hard to go ahead and create the temporary tables. So what they did is they requested all of those threads who is actually trying to create the temporary objects. They actually force them to come and delete the objects from the deleted list first before creating the temporary tables. But then even that did not work because that caused contention as well. That did not work very well. So what they thought is instead of requesting all of them, why not just get one helper thread per NUMA node? Only one helper thread we will need. Let that thread go ahead and delete all of these uh, all of these objects from the deleted list. By capturing the metadata information, let's go ahead and allocate a helper thread for that. That has happened in SQL Server 2017, CU5, SQL Server 2016, SP1 CU8, and SQL Server 2014 SP3. And there is also one more type of contention that is happening actually, temp table cache contention. Now, what we thought we can put that metadata information of the temp table instead of directly dropping it, because if we don't drop it, each time we go ahead and create any temporary table, we have to actually go ahead and update those system tables. That is actually causing the contention, right? So while while solving that, we have actually captured that metadata information of those temporary tables into the cache. But then even in the cache, we have the contention. Now what to do? Because of this contention, this is the contention for the memory objects itself associated with the temp table cache. And it looks like this, like you will see either the CMM thread weights or SOS cache store spin weights when you see those weight types. But there are several other reasons why we will see these CMM threads and SOS cache store weights as well. We are not more focusing onto this, but in the coming slides, we are going to see that what improvement they have made in SQL Server 2019. So TempDB in the SQL Server 2019 is a little bit special because they have added this in-memory OLTP, like in-memory optimized feature for these metadata table. That means the metadata of these temp tables is stored as the non-durable memory optimized tables. That means we do not even have to care about these metadata tables that we keep in the cache store. Whenever we restart the table, the tempdb will anyway restart. So they wanted to capture all these temp tables as a non-durable memory optimized tables in the cache itself, so that they will not have any latch, any locking of these metadata pages. And this has actually removed the metadata contention completely, because no logging of these operations as well. Now, there are a couple of recommendations that out of all these that we can give. Please make sure you have multiple equally sized files, the data files, so that your request can spread the workload onto those metadata pages. We always have to update those metadata pages when we request for any pages for the TempDB. So if you have those multiple files, we can actually eradicate that object allocation contention. But for completely removing the metadata contention, you have to have, there is no option, right? Because for a database, we only have certain number of system tables, only 14 to 15 system tables that we have to update. It's not like object allocation contention. We cannot go ahead and create many number of database files, as we have only couple of system objects within the TempDB. The only option we can solve the metadata contention is to upgrade it to SQL Server 2019, because that's where we have memory optimized temp tables. And To start with, you can actually have one database file per core, and up to 8 will be the good starting point. And as you increase the cores, you can actually think about how many files you can add, depending upon how much data you will be having and how much work you will be doing, how much workload you will be having on your TempDB. And by enabling the trace flag 1117 and 1118, if you are on the SQL Server 2014 or earlier, make sure you enable these, because that will make sure your TempDBs are, auto grow in the similar pattern. They all are auto growing at the same time and all. But if you are in the SQL Server 2016 and later, these two trace flags are automatically enabled. And if you wanted to create any index, right, after creating the TempDB, please go ahead and create those indexes newly with inline syntax that they have been introduced in this new inline syntax. They have been introduced in SQL Server 2016. So whenever you have created the temp table, just go ahead and include that syntax as well in the creation. In that way, you are already existing metadata table, which is already in the memory, that won't get invalidated. Otherwise, you won't even know, it will go ahead and get invalidated and we cannot reuse it. And please avoid using temp tables inside ad hoc batches, because um, the only way those temp tables can get cached is when they will have a execution plan with it, when they have a plan with it. So for the store procedures, triggers, functions, these temp tables can be cached, but for the ad hoc queries, you cannot cache those temp tables in the memory. Don't truncate the temp tables, because that's the metadata operation. It will actually affect the metadata as well. For lower versions of SQL Server, it's only one file by default, right? One data file for default. But for the later versions, it is made default to use the multiple data files for the TempDB. And if I have time, I can go ahead and show you the memory optimized metadata tables, how they actually work. So Tracy, do we have time, or am I running out of time?
You're the last person of the day. Go for it.
Okay. So this demo doesn't even take much time at all. So I just wanted to show how the memory optimized metadata tables work when it is enabled, when it's not enabled. So let me go ahead and share my. Okay. So I am using Pam Lahut. She generously, she generously accepted my request. She told like I can freely go ahead and use her scripts for my demo. So here I am. So we are using AdventureWorks 2016 database, or whatever, it's AdventureWorks database. So I'm going ahead and creating a procedure, right? It's a very simple procedure. Um, by giving a parameter month, and what we are doing is actually we are creating a birthdays temporary table. Simply we are inserting into the temporary table um, from the employee table with a birth date, with the especially we are filtering on the month, so we are inserting those records for that particular month of date, month birth date. And then we are using that inserted data from the temp table into this simple query. We can actually go ahead and insert this particular query directly into this particular query without creating the temp table. But then, usually they use these kind of queries in the real-time scenarios, because if we directly use that query inside the query itself, then that will make it as a complicated query, right? So instead they use the temp table in between. So let me go ahead and create that temp table, that particular store procedure. And then I wanted to run that particular store procedure 32 threads within 200 iterations to just show you how that page latch waits we can see, right? This particular query all it does is it will go ahead and show me if there are any page latch waits while I run this particular query. So I think I have to share my other screen. If you can see, I'm going ahead and running that number of iterations as 200 and number of threads 32 threads, and I'm using SQL Query Stress. That's a free tool. You can do the query stress by using these tools. So let me go ahead and run this particular store procedure with a parameter of 4th month. Let me go ahead and do that and minimize that. And let me go back to my, let me go ahead and execute that. And oops, why did it say insufficient system memory? Come on. So hold on just a moment. It should show me the latches. I'm not sure why it is not showing. Oh, okay. Why it is not showing is because I turned it on yesterday and I did not turn it off. I know it. I need to turn off the set memory optimized on TempDB metadata. I need to turn it off, and then I have to go ahead and restart my SQL Server. I'm sorry about that. I should have done this before. Yes. I'm restarting my SQL Server. Okay. Come on. Okay. So right now, it's turned off, right? So let me go ahead and run this particular query one more time. I'm running that again, and then I'm using this. I wanted to check the weights. My demo is not working today. It have to show me the page latch weights, you know.
Demo gods are after you.
Yeah, see, thank God I at least got one. So page latch exclusive weight, I have been seeing. That means it is on weight resource is on TempDB, the file number 1 and 301, the page number 301. Page number 301 meaning it is the system objects. If you see the page number as 1, 2, and 3, that means the PFS, GAM, and SGAM pages. But apart from those, if you see the highest number of file number, that means we have the contention on the system objects itself, right? And blocking session ID is 82. So what I will do right now is, let me go ahead and turn the set memory optimized TempDB metadata to be turned on. It will work as a magic if I execute that. And I have to restart my SQL Server to take that as effect. So I have to restart. So once I restart the SQL Server and run the same query with the same number of iteration, the contention will vanish. We cannot see any more contention. But we need to restart the SQL Server to take that as effect. So let me go ahead and verify if that particular metadata memory optimized is actually enabled. One meaning it is actually enabled. So let me go ahead and run the queries test one more time. I'm just pressing go. It's actually running. And right now, if you go ahead and check, you will not see contention for sure. No matter how many times you run, you will not see contention. So that is a new feature that got released in SQL Server 2019. So if you wanted to remove your contention, like metadata contention completely, I suggest you to go to the SQL Server 2019, migrate to 2019. So that's all my demo for today. Let me go ahead and share back my slides. And I would like to give a very big thank you and a very big shout out to Bob Ward and Pam Lahod for providing me all the support and for providing me all the resources that I can learn from and share back to the community. They helped me a lot by providing all the resources. So I have to give them the credit. And if you wanted to know more about MDB, right, you have those resources out there to follow. So thank you so much once again.